Oh, gather round, folks. Let me tell you a story that's as real as the apple pie I bake every 4th of July. It's about how an old granny like me, with nothing but faith and a stubborn streak wider than the Mississippi, turned around the life of her wayward grandson. But it wasn't easy. Oh no, it was a roller coaster of heartbreak, fistfights, and miracles that'd make you believe in second chances. Picture this. It was a stormy night in our little suburb outside Detroit, Michigan, back in 2008. I was sitting in my cozy living room watching the evening news about the big auto plant layoffs when the phone rang like a siren in the dark. On the other end, a state trooper's voice, cold as ice. "Ma'am, there's been an accident on I-75. Your son and daughter-in-law, they didn't make it." My world shattered right then, but little did I know that crash would set off a chain of events that'd test every ounce of love I had left. This is the story of how I saved my grandson from the streets and how in the end he saved me. My name's Margaret Thompson. Folks around here call me Maggie, and I'm pushing 78 now, living in the same modest ranch-style house I've called home since the 70s. Back then, my son Tommy was my pride and joy. He was a hard-working mechanic at the Ford plant, married to his high school sweetheart, Lisa, a sweet nurse at the local hospital. They had little Joey, their only boy, who was just 7 years old, wide-eyed with a mop of curly brown hair and a laugh that could light up the gloomiest Michigan winter. Tommy and Lisa were on their way home from a date night celebrating their 10th anniversary when a drunk driver swerved into their lane, gone in an instant. The funeral was a blur, rain-soaked graveside service at the cemetery, neighbors bringing casseroles and sympathy cards. But Joey, he was left alone, clinging to my skirt like a lost puppy. Child services talked about foster care, but I wouldn't hear of it. "He's coming home with me," I declared, signing the papers to become his legal guardian. At 61, I wasn't exactly spry, but I had Social Security, a small pension from my days as a school teacher, and a heart full of determination. "We'll make it, Joey," I whispered as I tucked him into bed that first night. "Grandma's got you." The early years weren't too bad. Joey was a quiet kid at first, grieving in his own way, nightmares about the crash, drawing pictures of his parents as angels. I enrolled him in the local elementary school, took him to Little League baseball games, and we went to church every Sunday at First Baptist, where the pastor preached about forgiveness and resilience. I'd read him bedtime stories from my old collection of Mark Twain and Dr. Seuss, hoping to fill the void. But as he hit middle school, things started changing. Puberty hit him like a freight train, and without his folks around, he lashed out. It began with bullying, pushing smaller kids around on the playground, getting suspended for fighting. I'd sit him down at the kitchen table over homemade meatloaf and mashed potatoes and say, "Joey, honey, that's not how we treat folks. Remember what your daddy taught you? Kindness is strength." He mumbled sorry, but his eyes were hard, like he was building walls I couldn't climb. By high school, it got worse. Joey fell in with the wrong crowd. Those kids from the rougher side of town, hanging out at the abandoned lots near the old factories. He started skipping classes, coming home with that glassy-eyed look. I found weed in his backpack one day, hidden under his Detroit Lions jersey. "What is this, young man?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He just shrugged. "Nothing, Gran. Mind your business." But it was something. It escalated to pills, then harder stuff. He'd sneak out at night, and I'd pace the floor, praying to God he'd come back safe. The thrill of worrying about him kept me up, my heart racing like I was in one of those crime shows on TV. Then came the street crimes. At 15, he got arrested for shoplifting at the Walmart, stealing electronics to sell for drug money. The juvenile court judge, a stern fellow with a mustache like a broom, gave him probation and community service. "This boy's on a bad path, Mrs. Thompson," he warned me. "You gotta rein him in." I tried everything. Oh, Lord, did I try. Bless your heart for wondering about my coaching methods. They weren't some fancy playbook from a self-help book or one of those TED Talks the young folks rave about. No, they were born from a lifetime of teaching school kids in Detroit's public system back in the 80s and 90s, mixed with a heaping dose of grandmotherly grit and faith from my Baptist roots. I wasn't no psychologist or life coach with a degree from the University of Michigan, but I knew one thing: change don't come from yelling or punishing alone. It comes from planting seeds of hope, watering them with patience, and praying for sunshine. First off, I leaned heavy on professional help because I knew I couldn't do it all myself. I signed him up for after-school programs at the local YMCA, free for low-income families, with grants from folks like the United Way. They had mentorship for at-risk youth, pairing kids with big brothers or sisters from the community. Joey's mentor was a retired cop named Mr. Hayes, a tall black fella with a mustache, and stories from his days patrolling the city during the '67 riots. They'd play basketball in the gym, talk about making good choices, and even do workshops on conflict resolution. Things like stop, think, act exercises where you'd pause before reacting. I'd drop Joey off in my old Chevy, watching him dribble that ball with a scowl that slowly turned to a grin. One time they went on a field trip to Comerica Park for a Tigers game, and Joey came home buzzing about teamwork. "Gran, Mr. Hayes says real men protect, not hurt." It thrilled me to see him channel that aggression into sports instead of fights. I expanded this by enrolling him in summer camps through the Boys and Girls Club, archery, swimming, even coding basics on old computers. Kept his hands busy and his mind dreaming bigger than the corner store hustles. At home, I got creative with what I called my heart-to-heart toolkit. Cooking was a big one. Nothing soothes a troubled soul like comfort food in America, right? I'd make his favorites, chili dogs with all the fixins, inspired by our trips to Lafayette, Coney Island downtown, or apple crisp from Michigan's orchards. While we chopped onions or peeled apples side by side, I'd weave in life lessons. "See how this dough needs kneading to rise? That's like you, Joey. A little pressure makes you stronger." He'd roll his eyes, but he'd listen. Music was another weapon in my arsenal. I'd play old Motown records on my vintage turntable, Aretha Franklin's Respect on repeat, or Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. We'd dance in the living room, me shuffling in my slippers, him awkward at first, but loosening up. "Listen to the lyrics, hun," I'd say. "Respect starts with yourself." It wasn't just fun. It sparked talks about civil rights heroes tying into our Detroit heritage. I'd leave sticky notes on his mirror or in his backpack with quotes. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "The time is always right to do what is right," or even from Coach Wooden, "Success is peace of mind in knowing you did your best." Over time, he'd quote them back at me during arguments, showing they were sinking in. Volunteering was my secret sauce for teaching gratitude and empathy. We'd head to the soup kitchen at Capuchin Services on Thanksgiving and other holidays, serving hot meals to the homeless, folks hit hard by the auto industry crashes or opioid crisis sweeping Michigan. Joey'd ladle gravy over turkey, muttering at first about why we gotta help these bums. but seeing a kid his age in line, eyes downcast, softened him. "Gran, that boy looks like me," he'd whisper. We'd talk on the drive home about how life can knock anyone down, quoting the Bible's "do unto others." I expanded this to weekend cleanups at Belle Isle Park, picking up trash with community groups, or visiting nursing homes to read to elders. One time, an old vet shared his Vietnam stories with Joey, warning him about the dangers of unchecked anger. It thrilled me when Joey started volunteering on his own, saying it made him feel bigger than my problems. For inspiration, I'd clip success stories from the Detroit Free Press or show him segments on the evening news, ex-cons who turned their lives around, like that local guy who went from prison to owning a barbershop chain, or athletes like Dwayne Johnson talking about juvenile troubles. "See, Joey, they hit rock bottom too, but climbed out with hard work." During his darkest teen years, when drugs and crimes peaked, these stories were lifelines. But if we're diving into Joey's therapy breakthroughs, pull up a chair and grab a cup of coffee, black like I take mine, with a splash of that Michigan pride. This part of our story, it's where the real magic happened, slow and steady, like watching a seed sprout in spring after a long, hard winter. I ain't no expert, mind you, just a granny who leaned on faith, a good therapist, and every ounce of patience the good Lord gave me. But those sessions, they cracked open Joey's heart, layer by layer, turning his rage into something he could handle. It all kicked off when Joey was about 13, right as his bullying picked up steam. He'd come home from school with notes from the principal, fighting in the hallways, shoving kids for their lunch money, and I'd see that fire in his eyes, the kind that screamed hurt more than hate. I knew it stemmed from losing his folks. That accident left a hole in him bigger than the Grand Canyon. So I hauled him to the community health center in Detroit, where we got low-cost sessions through Medicaid. Our therapist, Dr. Ramirez, a sweet young lady with a calm voice and posters of serene beaches on her walls, specialized in grief and anger for teens like Joey, who'd been orphaned young. At first, he fought it tooth and nail. "This is dumb, Gran. I ain't talking to some stranger," he'd grumble, slouching in the chair with his arms crossed. I'd sit in the waiting room, knitting a scarf and pray and hearing muffled arguments through the door. But Dr. Ramirez was patient as a saint. She started small, building trust with games and drawings instead of forcing words. One of the first big breakthroughs came with what she called naming the monster. Joey had all this pent-up anger, lashing out at me at school, even at Max, our dog, and she had him draw his anger monster on paper. Turned out it was this big, jagged truck with flames shooting out, eyes like his daddy's old Ford that got wrecked in the crash. "That's what it feels like inside," he muttered, pencil scratching hard. That drawing session, it was a thrill. My heart raced when he brought it home, 'cause for the first time, he wasn't just acting out, he was putting words to it. "The monster comes when I think about Mom and Dad," he admitted later over dinner. Dr. Ramirez explained it was grief mixing with guilt. He'd argued with his mama that morning before the accident, something silly about breakfast, and he blamed himself deep down. Hearing him say it out loud, that was the crack in the dam. Tears flowed, mine and his, and from then on, he started journaling at home, scribbling his feelings in a notebook I bought him from Walmart. It wasn't fancy, but it helped him untangle the mess, like unraveling a knotted yarn. That technique stuck. Even now he keeps a journal in his truck for tough days. As he got older, around 15 when the drugs and street stuff crept in, the therapy ramped up to twice a week. We hit a rough patch. Joey skipped sessions, came home high, punching walls instead of talking. But Dr. Ramirez introduced role playing, and oh boy, that was a game changer. She'd act out scenarios. Pretend I'm a kid teasing you at school. What do you do? At first, Joey'd mimic his old ways, pretending to swing a fist, but she'd guide him. Stop, think, act. Take a deep breath, walk away, or use words. We'd practice at home too, over chili dogs in the kitchen. Okay, Joey, I'm that punk still in your bike. How you handling it? I'd say, acting all tough. He'd laugh at first, then get serious, practicing phrases like, that ain't cool, man. Back off. The thrill of seeing him pause before reacting, it saved us from so many blow-ups. One breakthrough hit during a family session I joined. Dr. Ramirez had us talk about the accident together. Joey broke down, sobbing about feeling abandoned, angry at God, at the drunk driver, at himself. Why them, Gran? Why not me? He wailed. I held him, and she normalized it. That's grief, Joey. It's okay to feel it all. That release, it lifted a weight. His mood swings eased, and he started sleeping better. No more nightmares waking the house. By 17, when his crimes peaked, shoplifting, running with that gang, the therapy shifted to building resilience and coping skills. Dr. Ramirez used cognitive stuff like challenging his thoughts. You think you're a loser because your folks are gone? Let's list what makes you strong. He'd jot down things like good at fixing bikes or Gran loves me, and it boosted his self-worth. Another breakthrough came through music. She suggested songwriting as a way to express without words. Joey, who loved old Motown like I do, scribbled lyrics about loss. Truck took 'em away, left me in the rain, but I'm rising up, breaking the chain. We'd play Aretha on the turntable after, and he'd hum along. That creative outlet? It was a thrill watching him channel anger into art instead of fists. He even shared it in a support group she recommended at the YMCA. Other teens who'd lost parents bonding over stories, hearing he wasn't alone. That strengthened him, reduced his isolation. No more withdrawing into his room. He'd hang with better kids, play basketball instead of stealing. The biggest emotional punch came after his breakup with Brittany at 19. She left calling him poison, and it shattered him. In therapy, he connected the dots. His risky behaviors, drugs, theft, were ways to numb the grief he'd repressed. I was running from the pain, he confessed in session, tears streaming. Dr. Ramirez called it a eureka moment. He owned his mistakes, learned empathy by imagining how his actions hurt others, like me. From there, breakthrough snowballed. Better social skills, reconnecting with old friends, preventing long-term stuff like depression by building routines, mental health days when grief hit hard, deep breathing for anger flares. We'd reminisce about his folks too, sharing happy memories over photo albums, turning sadness into warmth. Looking back, those breakthroughs weren't just Joey's, they were mine too. I learned to listen without fixing, to let him lead. After his breakup with Brittany, that gut-wrenching moment that cracked him open, I amped up the daily talks. We'd sit on the porch swing, sipping lemonade, discussing responsibility. Own your mistakes, hun. That's manhood. I helped him find a free rehab support group at the community center, modeled after AA, 12-step meetings where he'd share anonymously. I'd wait outside, praying, then bring him home for soup and encouragement during withdrawals. One day at a time, I'd echo, holding his sweating hand. Finally, pushing education and skills was key to sealing the change. I nudged him toward his GED through adult ed classes at the local high school. Night sessions with patient teachers who understood second chances. We'd study together under the kitchen light, me quizzing him on math while baking cookies as rewards. Then vocational training in plumbing at the trade school, practical, hands-on, with union promises of steady jobs rebuilding Detroit's infrastructure. Plumbers are heroes too, I'd say, showing him ads for apprenticeships paying $25 an hour to start. The thrill of seeing him graduate, cap on his head, was pure joy. As Joey hit 18, things hit rock bottom. He dropped out of high school, running with a gang that did petty thefts, breaking into cars, selling stolen goods on the streets. He'd come home high, reeking of smoke and desperation, demanding money from my purse. "Give me cash, old woman, or I'll take it," he'd threaten. I'd hand it over, my hands trembling, then cry myself to sleep. Neighbors whispered, "Poor Maggie, that boy's gonna kill her." But I never gave up. The real turning point came with a heartbreak of his own. Joey had been dating this girl, Brittany, from the neighborhood, a pretty thing with dreams of becoming a hairstylist. She stuck by him through the drugs and crimes, but one day she caught him stealing from her purse. "I'm done, Joey. You're poison," she said, slamming the door on her way out. He came home that night, not high for once, but sobbing like a child. "Gran, she left me, said I'm a loser. I held him, rocking him like when he was 7. You can change, sweetheart, but it starts with you." That breakup shattered him, making him see the mirror of his life. Combined with my persistent coaching and those therapy breakthroughs, I saw glimmers. Slowly, he quit the drugs cold turkey, with my help tracking down a free rehab support group at the community center. He'd sweat through withdrawals on the couch, and I'd bring him soup, whispering encouragement, "One day at a time, Joey, like AA says." Bit by bit, he improved. At 20, he got his GED through night classes I encouraged. Then I suggested vocational training, something practical like plumbing, since Michigan's got a boom in construction with all the revitalization projects downtown. Plumbers make good money, hun, union jobs with benefits. He enrolled in a program at the local trade school, funded by a scholarship for at-risk youth. The thrill of seeing him excited about something positive, coming home with stories of fixing pipes and learning codes, filled my heart with joy. Emotions ran high. I'd tear up watching him study at the kitchen table, pencil in hand. Soon he graduated top of his class, landed a job with a reputable company, installing systems in new homes. His first paycheck, he took me out to Olive Garden, ordering endless breadsticks. "Thanks, Gran, for not giving up." I thanked God every night, kneeling by my bed. "You answered my prayers, Lord." But life has a way of throwing curveballs, don't it? Just when things were looking up, Joey earning a handsome $60,000 a year, buying his own truck, it hit me, breast cancer. I found the lump during a routine self-exam, like they teach on those PSAS. At 75, I felt helpless, weak as a kitten. The doctor at the University of Michigan Hospital confirmed it. Stage 2, aggressive. Chemo, surgery, radiation, the works. Costs piled up even with Medicare. I didn't want to burden Joey, but he saw me crumbling. "Gran, I'm here," he said, his voice steady. He took time off work, drove me to every appointment, held my hand through the nausea of chemo. When I was too weak to cook, he'd make simple meals, grilled cheese and tomato soup, just like I used to for him. He even researched natural remedies, bringing me ginger tea for the side effects. One thrill-filled night, I collapsed from fatigue, and he rushed me to the ER, advocating with the nurses. "She's a fighter. Get her the best care." His insurance from the job helped cover what mine didn't. Emotionally, he was my rock, reading me Psalms when I doubted. You saved me, Gran. Now let me save you. And he did. His support kept me fighting, and after a grueling year, the docs declared me in remission. Your grandson's love was the best medicine, the oncologist said. Looking back, this story ain't just about me changing Joey's life. It's about how love, tough as nails, can redeem anyone. The life lesson: never give up on family, no matter how dark the path. In this great country of ours, with its second chances and community spirit, like those trade programs and church groups that helped us, we can rise from the ashes. Joey's now 24, engaged to a nice girl from his job, and we're planning a backyard barbecue wedding. Me? I'm cancer-free, baking pies again, and telling this tale to anyone who'll listen. Because if an old granny from Michigan can turn a criminal into a hero, imagine what you can do. God bless America, and God bless the power of perseverance.